Chapter 24, The Dog's Purpose. Grandma was taken away on a rolling bed, and so much anguish followed her out the door that I whimpered. When Chase, Dad, and Burke and Grant jumped into a car and drove down the driveway, I cried and followed, pursuing them on the road, until they stopped and Burke opened a door for me. After a short ride, we arrived at a big building, but I didn't see Grandma again. Not long after that, the house was filled with sad, quiet people. A lot of them hugged Chase, Dad. There were plates and plates of food. No, which I thought would make everyone happy. It certainly made me happy. But some people were so heartbroken they were weeping. I did not know how to help any of them, and felt a little like a bad dog because of my failure. Oh. One went to sit with Grant, and he got up and walked. So she sat with Burke. They talked in muted tones. Zizi and Lee Men were there, and they murmured as well. I don't know why someone didn't just throw a ball. Grandma was not there. This was, I knew, why everyone spoke with such whispered sorrow. Life ends, for humans the same as goats, and when it does, people mourn, and a dog must be there for hugs and silence. Gradually, the company left until it was just Chase, Dad, and Burke and Grant. They carried plates into the kitchen and started bagging things up. Enough to feed an army, Chase, Dad noted in wooden tones. When do you want to bury her ashes? Burke asked. Grandma. Chase, Dad wiped a cloth across his eyes. Oh, tomorrow, I guess. Don't have the heart for it right now. Seems like just a short time ago that we were up there on that hill with Dad's ashes. I can't believe they are both gone. Chase, Dad put his head in his hands. There was a long, long silence. Finally, Grant cleared his throat. I'll stay for that, then. Burke and Chase, Dad both looked at him. He nodded. And then I'm leaving. Chase, Dad stood and held out his arms. Come here, son. We're all hurting. Grant took a step back, shaking his head. My friend Scott says I can crash at his place until I figure things out. Down in Kalamazoo. Maybe I'll work construction or go to Western. Obviously not going to school at MU with Wendling, but I can't stay here anymore. I need to get out. Please, Grant, Dad begged. Grant walked to the stairs and started up. You'll have to figure out how to run this place without me because I'm never coming back. This place is like a prison to me. Chase, Dad sat down. I've never felt so old in my life, he whispered. I went to him and put my head in his lap. The next day we climbed up the big hill that overlooked the farm, and everyone spoke quietly, and then Chase, Dad dug a hole and put something heavy in it. I sniffed the dirt, but I did not understand. Grant and Burke eventually descended back down to the house, but Chase, Dad sat on a rock and was so sad that I knew that to be the best dog possible, I should remain with him. I put my head in his lap again, and he stroked my ears and cried with deep, pain-filled sobs. I let the tears fall on my fur without shaking them off. We were there for a long time, and then when we returned to the house, Grant was gone. And like Grandma, he never came back. For a long time after that, I found myself going to Grant's room to inhale the scents in his closet and to Grandma's room to smell her clothes. I was doing just that when I sensed my boy behind me in the doorway. After all this time, it was still a shock to see him standing without any help. Hey, Cooper, you miss Grandma? Let's go to town. I assumed we were going to find Wendling and hoped Lacey would be with her, but instead we went to the dog park. I love the dog park. I loved leaving my marks everywhere. I was running and running with dogs when a huge stocky male rushed aggressively toward me. I turned and faced him, tail stiff, ready for whatever he intended, but he slowed, politely sniffing between my rear legs. I returned to the gesture, and immediately I recognized him. It was Heavy Boy Buddha, my brother! We ignored all the other dogs and pursued each other around the park. I was quickly exhausted. Heavy Boy Buddha was harder to tackle than Lacey, and could knock me right off my feet. He was panting too, though, and after we chased off a couple brown dogs from the water bowl, we lapped up our fill and then collapsed together in the shade. I didn't get up when a man shouted, Buddha! And clapped his hands, though Heavy Boy Buddha clambered to his feet. I watched as my brother approached the man and followed him out the gates. Heavy Boy Buddha stopped on the other side of the fence, searching for and finding me with his eyes, and wagged his tail. I wagged back. We were brothers. This was what happened to dogs. We wanted to live with people. We were puppies with siblings and a mother dog, and then humans intervened. And it was best because when mother was raising us in the den, she was afraid, and we were not fully nourished and had no purpose. Having a person to live with was a gift given to dogs. The rest of the summer passed pretty much the way the previous one did, only Grant wasn't there. Close to the time when Chase Dad started driving around with buckets of apples. Wendy came to see me, and her car was packed so full of things I couldn't do car ride even if I wanted. I sniffed suspiciously. There was cloth and plastic mostly. Burke opened the open door. Wow, you must have nearly a tenth of your closet in there. Stop, it's everything I own. So did you and your dad talk it through? Burke shook his head. Not really. He told me I should call Grant and apologize. Never mind that my brother deliberately left his phone, and no one knows where Grant even is. Somehow it's my fault my brother took off. One Lane turned and looked out into the fields. Didn't you get the sense Grant was always going to leave? She asked softly. If there was anything he didn't want, it was to stay here and work the farm. That's true. He was just waiting for an excuse. And so I'm the excuse, One Lane observed. Right, you are basically the reason for everything bad that's ever happened. One Lane laughed quietly. I wagged at the other sound. So you haven't heard from him either, the boy asked. My boy asked. No, I broke his heart, Burke. I said we could always be together, but I didn't want to get married right then. But he said now or never. It was like watching him break himself apart somehow, like he was proving some point about me, about your family, about everything. Burke closed the door on his side. Grant's always been angry about things he can't articulate. I'm not sure he even knows deep down what has him so furious. I think it's his mom. Burke walked around the car to be with One Lane and me. So with me at Michigan State at semester and you at MU, I guess we're huge rivals and we're not allowed to talk to each other anymore. That's a familiar state of affairs. Ouch. Yeah, about that one thing. I'm so sorry for how I've been behaving. I was trying to punish you and Grant and wound up. Well, I didn't accomplish anything, did I? I think back to how it was when we were together, the three of us hanging out, and realized that even though I was in the chair, I was never happier. Then I ruined it. Oh, Burke. No, I'm serious. I think of every time you smiled at me at school and I just looked away. How I'd see you and Grant together and immediately head off in another direction. I wish I could have it all back. I would do it oh so differently. It's okay, Burke. None of it matters. They stood and looked at each other, smiling. Go green, he said. Go blue. Good luck, One Lane. They hugged for a long time. I did not understand what was happening, but I knew it was making them sad, especially when One Lane drove off. Burke just stood there watching the car go until the sound of it had faded long away. I was on the front porch later, digesting a very fine dinner of dog food, when I picked up the most wonderful scent. Lacey was near. I dashed down the driveway as she was scampering up. I was overjoyed to see her. I looked toward the house, waiting to share this amazing event with people, but no one was outside, and I couldn't take the time to go get them. Not with Lacey here. We ran and ran together in the fields, jumping on each other the whole way. We passed through the fields, scrambled up the hill, and raced past the rock where Chase Dad had been so sad. This was a farm where I had spent my whole life, and now with Lacey here, I knew everything would be perfect. My stomach felt heavy from dinner, and then as we played it felt heavier and heavier, as if I were still eating. A tight cramp gripped me. I felt the need to vomit, but was unable to. I stopped playing. Lacey approached me, concerned, her ears down. Panting, I turned toward home. I needed my boy. Burke would make it better. With every step, though, I felt my stomach expanding against my ribs, a painful pressure. Whining, I stopped and gazed helplessly at Lacey. I couldn't lie down, yet I could barely stand. I imagined Burke's hand in my fur, comforting me, finding the pain and making it go away. Lacey barked, the sort of frantic sound a dog makes when it needs a person. She turned toward the house and barked, but it was a long way from us, and no one came. She touched her nose to mine and then ran away in the direction of home. I sank to the dirt, my breathing labored, yipping in agony when I felt my bloated side. I heard Lacey barking in the distance and imagined her on my porch. The barking abruptly ceased. Cooper! Brooke called, his voice thin on the breeze. I rose to my feet, drooling and staggering, and took a few steps before I had to halt. I heard Lacey barking again. She was coming closer. I raised my head and saw Lacey running ahead of Burke, who was following her. He put his hands to his mouth. Cooper. I could not be a good dog and do come. Then Lacey was there. She looked at my face, crying. I heard Burke's footsteps. Cooper, what's wrong? He knelt beside me and put his hands on my face. Then his arms came around me and he hefted me up, grunting. Though I felt a sharp pain, nothing has ever felt more comforting than being held against his chest as he carried me to the car. Lacey jumped in the back seat with me and carefully curled up against my body, guarding me. After a car ride, I could tell from the sounds and smells wafting out into the parking lot that we had arrived at the vet's. But when Burke tried to lift me out, I cried, and he left me there with Lacey. Lacey put her nose to mine. I wagged as best I could. I realized something then. This wasn't just about the agony in my stomach. Something much more important was happening, as vivid as any memory. I knew what was occurring now. I knew I would not be swimming in the pond ever again, or sleeping with my boy, or running with Lacey, or being a good dog doing assist. Instead, if Burke sat in his chair and needed me to do both, I wouldn't be there to help him. Burke gave me a purpose in life. It made me sad to think that my purpose was over. When Burke returned, the vet was with him. I felt gentle fingers probing my stomach. Bloat and volvulus, the vet said. His stomach is twisted. Can he be saved? Help me get him to surgery. Arms reached for me, and though I knew they were trying to be gentle, the tearing pain made me cry out. Both men backed away. Oh, God, Burke said. Let me get ketamine. The vet hurried off. Cooper, you're a good dog, the best dog, Cooper. Hang in there, buddy. I love you. You know I love you. Such a good dog, Burke whispered. He kissed my face, and I wagged. I felt the terror in my voice, so I roused myself and licked his cheek, and some of the fear became sadness instead. I lay there with Burke and Lacey. Burke was my boy, and Lacey was my dog. I was surrounded by those I loved. The vet turned, and with the sharp bite of my fur, a warmth spread through me. The sensation in my stomach became a tolerable ache. We're losing him, Burke. Burke pressed his face into my fur. I smelled his tears. Oh, Cooper, Cooper, you're such a good dog. Please, if you can, would you hang on for me? I sensed that Lacey's snout was pressing against my lips, but I could no longer feel her there. I concentrated on them, Burke and Lacey, clinging to their scents as long as I could. I'm sorry, Burke. He's gone. Burke's voice came from far away. Cooper, that's okay. It's okay, I love you. You are a good dog, such a good dog. I'm going to miss you so much. I will never forget you, Cooper. There, with my boy and my mate, I felt a complete peace, and the pain receded, and my vision went dark, and I heard Burke calling my name over and over, but I could no longer see him. I could feel his love, though, as strongly as I had felt his arms when he hugged me to his chest. I was glad Lacey was there to comfort him. Burke would need a good dog now. It seemed then that I was floating in warm water. My vision returned, but there was nothing to see except a diffuse golden light. I had the sense I was somewhere else, no longer in the parking lot with Burke and Lacey. I knew I had been here before, even if I didn't exactly know where I was. Bailey, you are a good dog, I heard a man say. His voice sounded familiar, as if I had heard it long ago and just couldn't remember who he was. I know this doesn't make sense to you now, buddy, but your work isn't done yet. I need you to go back for me, okay, Bailey? You are a good dog, but there is something else very important for you to accomplish. I wondered who the man was and what he was trying to tell me.